I watched him sneer, calling my life's work a fraud, until my accountant slammed the tax ledger on the bench like a verdict. I felt my chest tighten the moment his words cut through the hush of the courtroom. I saw the judge's eyes flicker at the accusation. I heard the gasp from the gallery, like a sudden storm roaring to life. I swallowed bile. I pressed my trembling fingers into the wooden pew, trying to steady my racing heart. How dare he insult everything I built with my own blood and sweat? I thought, my vision narrowing to that ledger, the one document that could save me. I noticed the fluorescent glare overhead, spotlighting us like actors on a stage. I noticed the shuffle of papers in my accountant's hand, a quiet prelude to revelation. I noticed every pair of eyes swinging toward us, waiting. I sucked in a breath, tasting fear and determination. I could almost hear the judge's gavel humming with anticipation. I could almost feel my daughter's face in the front row, her innocent hope burning brighter than any shame. I braced myself. What would happen the moment those numbers spoke, louder than his lies? I remember the first time I stepped into that courthouse, crisp suit, pressed, leather briefcase in hand, feeling like I belonged in a world built on rules and reason. I'm Elena Martinez, a small business owner who spent the last decade building Martinez Encumbered Consulting from scratch. I'm also a single mother to my 7-year-old daughter, Sophia, who greets every sunrise with laughter that chases away my darkest doubts. I live in a modest brownstone on Pine Street, where morning sunlight filters through lace curtains, and I sip coffee on a wrought iron balcony overlooking climbing ivy. I used to think that was all I needed to feel secure. I wake before dawn, the low hum of city traffic mingling with the ticking of my old wall clock. I pour myself a cup of black coffee and review client files by the kitchen table, surrounded by Sophia's pastel drawings of unicorns and airplanes. I iron my blouses while humming classical music, the iron's hiss echoing like my heartbeat before a big pitch. I drive a beat-up sedan to my downtown office, its interior cluttered with tax receipts and motivational sticky notes. You've got this. I walk into the office each morning greeting my small team, 2 analysts, 1 receptionist, who rely on me for guidance and stability. I spend hours dissecting balance sheets, crafting marketing proposals, and negotiating vendor contracts. I know every client by name, every number by memory. I used to believe that competence and honesty were enough to earn respect. I end each workday racing down cobblestone streets to pick up Sophia from her after-school program. I scoop her into my arms, inhaling the scent of her shampoo and the faint tang of playground dust. I tuck her into bed with stories of brave explorers and clever inventors. I kiss her forehead, whispering, "Tomorrow we conquer the world." Then I collapse onto the worn sofa, weary but content. I felt safe in my routine, safe in my accomplishments. I felt no one could tarnish the reputation I'd forged. I felt immune to the petty slights that swirling gossip might inflict. Then, I met Marcus Hale, the man who called himself a business consultant on LinkedIn, and who I naively welcomed into my circle. I attended breakfasts where he praised my growth strategy, and dinners where he toasted to mutual success. I trusted his smooth voice and charming smile as I might trust my own reflection. I signed him to a retainer, thinking his expertise would expand my horizons. I let him attend client meetings, watch me negotiate with confidence, and sit beside me in late-night strategy calls. I introduced him to Sophia, her eyes wide as he made balloon animals at her 6th birthday. I told myself he was an ally, someone who understood the weight I carried alone. I needed support, I thought. I needed someone to share the load. I don't recall when the tension first crept in, but I felt a chill the first time he paused mid-presentation, offering a curt smile. I felt doubt when he questioned a financial forecast, his words soft but laced with contempt. I felt a sting when he mentioned amateur hour beneath his breath while I drafted a client email. I noticed the tiny furrow between his brows as he reviewed my designs. I heard him clear his throat if I suggested a direction that didn't match his vision. I chalked it up to professionalism, assuming he was simply raising standards. I shook off the unease and pressed on, believing my instincts would guide me. I told myself I was overreacting, indulging in insecurity. I kept documents hidden in locked drawers, invoices printed and filed away. I kept late hours, hammering out every detail until perfection. I kept secrets from Sophia, afraid she might worry if she knew how I slept with one eye open. I never anticipated the avalanche that awaited me in that courtroom. I never expected Marcus to metamorphose from a trusted colleague into my fiercest accuser. I never foresaw the moment when he would stand across from me in that mahogany-lined chamber, voice steady as he accused me of financial negligence, of cooking the books, of betraying clients. I never imagined my calm facade shattering with a single whispered claim. I glanced at the gallery that day, Sophia clutching her stuffed rabbit, my parents leaning forward in the front row, and my best friend Clara's face pale with worry. I gripped the edge of my chair, feeling the weight of every hopeful look in the room. I inhaled the antiseptic tang of the courtroom air, my throat tightening. I saw Marcus's smirk, the glint of his polished cufflinks, and I realized this was no mere disagreement over strategy. I leaned forward, heart pounding, ready to defend not just my company, but my entire identity. I opened my mouth, and then I paused. What would I say when all eyes turned to me? I felt the courtroom's temperature drop the moment Marcus Hale rose to speak. I watched the judge lean forward, eyebrows knitting. I heard the hush deepen. I sensed Marcus's confidence fill the space like a cold wind. Then he began, with a smile so polite it felt venomous, casting doubt on my every decision. I braced myself as he described inconsistencies in my quarterly forecasts. I noticed his page turning, crisp and precise, as though he'd rehearsed, every line against my name. I heard him quote emails I'd sent, twisting casual notes into damning evidence. I felt my palms slick against my skirt. I felt my pulse hammering against my ribs. Is this really happening? I thought, as my vision blurred at the edges. Then Marcus pivoted to the softest attack. He questioned my motives. I heard his voice drop low, like a conspiracy whispered across the bench. He implied I'd withheld funds from a nonprofit client. He suggested I'd prioritized vanity metrics over real impact. He hinted I'd spent excessive amounts on office decor, my cherished hand-painted mural of a phoenix. He called it indulgence. I closed my eyes to steady myself. He's lying, I told myself. He doesn't know the hours I poured into that design, the way it inspired my team. I inhaled, drawing in a shaky breath through the seam of my blouse. I opened my eyes, searching for an ally. I found Clara's hand squeezing my mother's. I found my father's jaw clenched. I found Sophia's small form rigid in her seat. Then Marcus shifted tone, soft and conspiratorial. I felt every word pierce deeper. Elena is brilliant, he said. But sometimes brilliance needs checks and balances. Sometimes passion clouds judgment. Then he looked at me, really looked, and I felt suddenly naked under his gaze. I heard a murmur in the gallery, as if someone had passed a knife through the air. I wanted to speak. I wanted to shout, "You have no proof." But my throat had turned to sandpaper. I swallowed, tasting bitterness. Stay calm, I told myself. Listen, prepare your response. Then Marcus unveiled the first true gaslight. He claimed I'd promised to file an amended return for a major client, an attorney named Reynolds, yet had never done so. I blinked in disbelief. I remembered drafting that amendment in October. I remembered emailing Reynolds, then following up. I remembered his assistant's reply, "All good to proceed." Where did this narrative come from? I thought, my heart. squeezing. I refocused on my attorney, Ms. Lin, perched at my side like a coiled spring. I met her eyes. I saw her nod, almost imperceptibly. I felt a flicker of hope. I listened as she whispered legalese into her microphone. Objections, clarifications, demands for evidence. I felt relief that I wasn't alone. Then Marcus produced his proof, a typed memo on company letterhead, dated November 3rd, in which I supposedly wrote, "We'll push amendment to Q4, no big deal." I froze. I saw the date. I remembered. I'd been on a business trip that day, meeting with a client in Chicago, phone on airplane mode. I saw the signature in my script, but it wasn't mine. It was a forgery. I watched the judge narrow his eyes. I watched my attorney rise to challenge the document's authenticity. The air snapped with tension. I felt the wood-paneled walls closing in. I felt the judge's gavel pulse with unspoken warning. I felt my heartbeat thunder in my ears. Then Marcus smiled again, gentle and confident, as though he'd already won. "Perhaps Ms. Martinez can explain why she allowed such a delay, or why she misled her client," he said. I felt the room tilt. I felt a weight settle on my shoulders. Crushing, suffocating, I searched for the ledger. I imagined the crisp pages, the ink still fresh. I longed for the comforting weight of proof in my hands. I thought of my daughter, watching me from the front row, eyes wide. I thought of her question last night. "Mom, will the mean man take away your company?" I stiffened. "I can't let that happen," I vowed. "I won't let him rewrite my story." Then I realized something worse. The more I protested, the deeper Marcus would dig. He'd paint me as defensive, as someone hiding guilt. He'd use my passion, my fierce devotion to my business, as evidence of obsession, of recklessness. He'd turn every virtue into a vice. I swallowed again. I forced my voice to steady. I leaned into the microphone, envisioning Sophia's face above it all. I felt the judge's gaze sharpen. I opened my mouth, and then I paused. What will I say when the world expects me to crumble? I thought, as the gavel's echo drummed in my chest. I felt the gavel's echo thud in my chest as I leaned forward. I saw every eye in the courtroom pivot to me. I heard the hush grow heavier, like a tide pulling me under. I felt my throat tighten, the words I'd rehearsed snagging on dry tissue. Don't let them see you break, I thought. My vision narrowing to the judge's stern jawline, I swallowed steel-clad fear and forced my voice into the microphone. I said, I never forged a memo. I never lied to Attorney Reynolds. I have proof. I saw Ms. Lin's hand flash toward a leather briefcase at her feet. I watched her unclip the clasp. I heard the scrape of metal against wood. I felt a surge of hope, and then doubt. What if it wasn't enough? I remembered the night before. Sophia's small voice trembling in the darkness. She'd asked, Mom, what if they take everything away? I'd held her close, breathing in her soft cotton pajamas. I'd whispered, I will fight for us. I'd pressed my fingers into her tiny hand and promised justice. I thought of that promise now, and my resolve crystallized. I watched Ms. Lin lift a bound stack of papers. I saw her exchange a glance with Clara, my best friend turned confidant. I felt their solidarity wrap around me like armor. I heard Clara's breath hitch, as though she, too, held her life in suspended disbelief. I took a breath deeper than I thought possible. I said, This is the amended return I filed on October 22nd. The postmark is on the envelope. I let Ms. Lin pass the packet to the court clerk, who placed it beside Marcus's forged memo. I heard the judge's gavel rap twice, once to acknowledge the filing, once to invite Marcus's response. Then Marcus's face changed. I saw his eyes dart to the packet, then flick back to me. I felt his smug confidence falter. I heard the faint crack in his composure. I felt my heart jump. He's on the back foot, I thought, savoring the shift. And then Marcus rose again. I watched him smooth his tie, as though he could iron out his mistake. I heard him say, "If Ms. Martinez filed on October 22nd, why did Attorney Reynolds' office receive no copy until November 5th? His tone was measured, but the implication cut deep. Negligence, again. I swallowed, tasting sparked nerves. I steadied myself and met the judge's gaze. I said, "The postmark proves my mail date. Delays happen." But the client's acknowledgement, dated October 24th, confirms receipt. It's right here. I watched Ms. Lynn flip to the stamped acknowledgement. I saw the judge's eyes narrow, scanning the date. I heard a murmur in the gallery. I felt Sophia's small foot tapping her seat, a silent drumbeat of hope. I felt my parents lean forward, as though trying to bear witness through proximity. I felt the courtroom's atmosphere shift, electricity crackling in the polished wood. Then the judge spoke, voice low and deliberate. "Ms. Lynn, please submit the acknowledgement into evidence." I watched as the document joined the others on the clerk's tray. I heard the shuffle of papers, each one a testament to truth and timing. I felt my pulse resonate with each page turned. I thought I'd breathed a sigh of relief, but before I could, Marcus pounced again. I saw his lip curl. I heard him say, "And yet, Ms. Martinez, you failed to notify other clients of similar delays. Why should this single acknowledgement exonerate a pattern of disregard?" His words were a dart aimed at the heart of my credibility. I felt a lump rise in my throat. I fought back tears. I can't cry now, I told myself. Not in front of everyone. I took the smallest breath, enough to keep my voice from cracking. I said, "I always prioritize client notifications. Any oversight was an anomaly. I have affidavits." I saw Clara rise, handing sworn statements to Ms. Lynn. I watched the judge's pen hover, weighing the new claims. I felt sweat bead at my temples. I felt my blouse cling to my back, as though the fabric itself mourned my vulnerability. I heard my own ragged breathing echo through the microphone. Then my phone buzzed, soft and urgent, inside my purse at my feet. I froze, torn between panic and propriety. "Ignore it," my mind screamed. "Focus." But then I heard Sophia's whispered voice behind me. "Mom." I turned, spotting her wide eyes filled with worry. I felt a single tear slip down my cheek, unbidden. Bowed my head, willing myself calm. I said, "Your Honor, I understand the gravity of these allegations, but I swear on my daughter's future, I would never jeopardize a client's trust." I felt my voice tremble like a leaf in a storm, but I held on to it. The judge tapped his gavel lightly, an invitation that silence now spoke volumes. I stood in the hush, every breath magnified. I tasted salt on my lips. I heard the clock tick somewhere high above. I felt each beat of my heart as if it could shatter. What happens next, I thought, as the court held its collective breath, waiting for the judge's decision on whether my evidence would survive Marcus's relentless tide. I watched the judge hover over the stack of papers, the gavel's mahogany head suspended in anticipation. I felt every heartbeat echo in my ears. I need something more than affidavits, I thought, vision narrowing to a pinpoint of dread. What if all this isn't enough? Then I felt a soft tap on my shoulder. I turned, spotting Marcus's face frozen, caught between triumph and fear. I heard the faint rustle of a visitor's pass being slid across the bench to our bailiff. I saw a figure stepping through the side door. My longtime mentor, Professor Andrew Blake. He wore a tailored suit and carried a slim tablet. I felt my breath catch. He wasn't on the witness list. And then he strode forward, purposeful and calm, every step measured like a metronome. I noticed the courthouse lights glinting off his silver hair. I watched his eyes find mine, offering a flicker of reassurance. I felt my shoulders loosen. Help is here. I heard the judge clear his throat. Professor Blake, you may proceed. I swallowed, tasting dust and relief. I saw Professor Blake raise the tablet, tapping the screen once. Then came the hush, thick as velvet, before the first frame flickered to life. I recognized the conference. Room at my office. Walnut-paneled walls. The Phoenix mural behind the head chair. I saw Marcus at the table, reviewing a draft of that forged memo. I heard his voice on the recording. Let's hold off on the amendment until we finalize these figures. His tone was casual, collaborative, no hint of malice. I felt my pulse skyrocket. This is the truth. Then the video cut to my own voice, crisp and measured. Marcus, please send the amendment by tomorrow morning. We need it postmarked today. I felt my throat constrict as I heard myself. So clear, so authoritative. I thought I did say it. And then the final clip. My assistant, Sarah, checking the printer tray, her fingers nudging the printed amendment. She says, "Boss, it's ready. Shall I send it?" I watched Marcus nod. I watched him seal the envelope. I heard the whir of the postage machine. I felt the courtroom air shimmer with the truth laid bare. I looked up, eyes glistening. I saw the judge lean forward, absorbing every second. I heard a whisper in the gallery. That's her voice. I felt a swell of gratitude for Sarah's courage. She'd agreed to testify under oath. I saw her enter through the side door, now, skirted and solemn, clutching a printed copy of her own testimony. I felt the solidity of her presence anchor me. Then Marcus sprang to his feet, face pale. He sputtered. That video. Those recordings were unauthorized. That's a breach of privacy. I watched Sarah step forward, calm and determined. I heard her voice ring out. Your Honor, Ms. Martinez asked me to record our internal meetings for accuracy. Every participant consented. The recording cabinet lists signatures, Marcus included. I felt the room tilt as the judge's gaze flicked to the exhibit list. I saw him study Sarah's sworn affidavit and the consent forms. I heard him murmur, Exhibits D1 through D4 are admitted. I felt my chest unclench, as if the scales of doubt had fallen away. Then Marcus's shoulders slumped, his confidence evaporating like mist. I sensed the tide turning irrevocably. I heard him mutter under his breath, This changes everything. I felt the courtroom's energy shift, like a storm clearing to reveal bright sunlight. I swallowed hard, tasting victory and exhaustion. I felt a tear escape down my cheek, a silent testament to the months of fear and uncertainty. I glanced at Sophia, who was perched on the edge of her chair, eyes wide and shining. I thought of the hush in her voice when she asked, Mom, will they believe you? I saw her nod now, hope restored. Then the judge spoke, voice resonant. Ms. Martinez, Professor Blake, Ms. Carter, thank you. The court is satisfied that the documents and recordings demonstrate a clear timeline and intent. We will recess for final deliberation. I felt the gavel rap once, reverberating through my bones. I heard the shuffle of chairs as Marcus's lawyer whispered into his ear. I saw him slump into his seat, defeated. I felt my hands tremble, relief and adrenaline mingling like fire and ice. It's working. And then I felt Ms. Lynn's hand cover mine, warm and steady. I looked down at our entwined fingers, and I felt tears blur my vision. I closed my eyes for a moment, savoring the stillness before the storm's end. We did it. I opened my eyes, breath coming in soft gasps. I watched the bailiff usher the gallery out for recess. I saw my parents rise, their shoulders sagging as laughter cracked through their tears. I saw Clara approach, wrapping me in a tight hug. I felt every bit of their faith surrounding me, lifting me. Then I turned to face the bench, the judge's robes folding around him like a mantle of justice. I watched as he stepped back, preparing to deliver the final blow, or blessing. I felt my daughter's small hand slip into mine, grounding me. I raised my chin, heart trembling but resolute. What will he decide? I thought, as the courtroom doors closed and the chamber hushed once more, on the cusp of vindication or ruin. I felt the courtroom settle into a hush so complete it pressed against my eardrums. I watched the judge lift his gaze from the pile of exhibits, his robes rustling like distant thunder. I felt my stomach tighten as he cleared his throat, the sound echoing off the paneled walls. I gripped Sophia's hand, small, warm, a lifeline in the storm. I heard the judge say, "Having reviewed the evidence, the forged memo, the timely postmarked amendment, the client acknowledgement, and the authenticated recordings, this court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Ms. Elena Martinez." I felt a crack of sunlight split through my rib cage, warm and blinding. I saw Clara's breath catch. I saw my parents' shoulders slump in relief. I saw Marcus's face drain of color, his eyes flicking away from mine. I felt the weight of weeks of fear lift, like a mountain sliding off my chest. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding, long, trembling, desperate. I pressed my cheek against Sophia's hair, inhaling the scent of lavender and hope. I watched the bailiff stand, rapping the gavel one final time. I heard it resonate through every fiber of my being. I stood to accept the outcome, my legs unsteady, as saplings in wind. I heard the shuffle of onlookers as they rose too, some clapping softly, an ember of applause in the cavernous room. I felt my cheeks burn with tears I could no longer hold at bay. I blinked rapidly, willing my vision to clear. I approached the bench, each step measured, thunderous in my ears. I felt the judge extend his hand, the glare of overhead lights glinting off his polished ring. I saw him nod once, solemnly, and say, "Ms. Martinez, justice is not always swift, but it is relentless." I felt chills trace down my spine as I nodded in return, voice caught in my throat. I turned back to the gallery, where Sophia let go of my hand and ran into my arms. I felt her small body tremble against me as she whispered, "Mom, you did it." I held her so tight my ribs protested, tears soaking my suit. I whispered back, "We did it, sweetheart. We did it together." I stepped down from the witness stand, each footfall a beat in a victorious march. I passed Clara, who pressed a notebook into my hand, her notes from every hearing, scribbled tears and encouragement. I mouthed, "Thank you," as my voice threatened to break. I passed my parents, who enveloped me in a hug that felt like coming home. I felt their pride radiate through me, healing every bruise left by doubt. I looked at Marcus as I exited. He stood alone, shoulders slumped, ex-lawyer's air of command replaced by hollow defeat. I met his eyes for a moment. No anger, no triumph, just the quiet finality of truth revealed. I turned away, head high, letting the gravity of vindication settle into my bones. I stepped into the hallway, sunlight spilling through tall windows like spilled wine. I felt the warmth seep into my skin, chasing away the chill of the courtroom. I saw reporters scribbling notes, cameras flashing in polite bursts. I felt a new kind of exposure, one born of relief rather than fear. I guided Sophia toward the exit, our footsteps echoing in unison. I felt my resolve solidify. Never again would I doubt my integrity. I would rebuild my practice stronger, centered on honesty and care. I would show Sophia that truth can triumph, even when shadowed by lies. I exhaled as we reached the doors, stepping onto steps that led not to defeat, but to promise. I felt the breeze lift stray hairs across my forehead. I thought of my phoenix, mural, rising from ashes, our story of ruin and rebirth. I thought of every late night, every silent tear, every vow whispered in darkness. I thought of the ledger that started it all. I paused at the top of the steps, looking back once more at the courthouse facade. I felt my heart swell with gratitude for my accountant's courage, for Professor Blake's timely intervention, for Sarah's honesty, for Ms. Lynn's fierce advocacy, for Clara's unwavering faith, and most of all, for Sophia's innocent belief in me. I closed my eyes briefly, tasting freedom. I opened them to the skyline beyond, busy streets humming with life, the world moving forward as if inviting us to join. I reached down, took Sophia's hand, and together we walked away, toward healing, toward hope, toward every tomorrow we would conquer. What new challenges await? I wondered, as the courthouse doors swung shut behind us. Proof that even when the odds seem insurmountable, truth and perseverance will always prevail. I learned that truth doesn't need permission. I felt, in every fiber of my being, that honesty is its own armor, shining brighter than any polished lie. I never expected to find such strength in vulnerability, I thought, my heart still pounding from the courtroom's final gavel. I realized that integrity is more than a ledger. It's the syllables of your promise, spoken in the dark when no one else is listening. I know now that when you stand for what's right, when you present the facts, even if your hands tremble, you give others permission to do the same. I discovered that allies appear in unexpected forms. The accountant who filed those receipts, the mentor who captured every word on record, the assistant brave enough to press record, the friend who scribbled notes through every hearing, my daughter who believed before the world did. Their faith in me became my own. I carry this lesson beyond the courthouse doors, in every business decision, every personal doubt, every moment when the world whispers that you're alone. I will choose transparency over fear, proof over presumption, action over silence. Because I know now that truth, once unleashed, is unstoppable. If you've ever felt unheard, underestimated, or boxed in by doubt, take heart. Let this story remind you that your voice matters, your evidence counts, and your integrity is worth defending. Then stand tall, gather your ledgers, and speak your truth. If this confession resonated with you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and comment below with your own stories of standing up for what's right. And if you want more first-person courtroom dramas and lessons in resilience, subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss an episode. Because together, we prove that honesty is the ultimate verdict.